G'day and welcome to the third episode of The Wrap. Today we've got a massive show. We've got a little bit of Trump, a little bit of beta male, a little bit of Andos breaking down the latest in the Tristan Thompson Kardashian curse. The usual suspects are here. I've got the boys, the homies, the slap gang. Let's do it. Andos, how are you today, mate?
I'm a bit sick today and also a little bit ill. So, glad to be here.
Dukes, as always.
Good,
Dukes
mate.
is in stripes. If no one can tell, if you're listening to this on the podcast, despite our stylist telling Dukes stay away from stripes, particularly horizontal stripes, but he's decided to go the verticals today. Dukes, how you going?
Good, mate.
Good, he's going well. As I said, we've got an action-packed show, but we're going to kick it off as per usual with a little bit of jumping to conclusions. We haven't really prepared much this week. You may see this, but you may not. You may not be able to tell. Dukes is going to kick it off. Dukes, what is your jumping to conclusions?
Jumping to conclusions. Blu-rays, not a thing, and I don't think it was ever a thing. I saw them selling them in JB Hi-Fi. Wonder why. I don't know anyone who buys them.
Blu-ray?
Blu-ray. Don't know who watches Blu-rays. I think they are.
Are you talking about like
relevant.
Blu-ray DVDs?
Yeah, Blu-ray DVDs. I don't know why they're a thing. I don't think they ever were a thing. But they're still getting.
You've been
still
hyping
getting
up your
pushed.
conclusion for the past hour, and you've come out with this garbage.
Okay, that was pretty well hot trash. Anyway, Andos, what's yours?
How about we go to yours first, mate? Because I'm still undecided about what.
Andos is still thinking it. Okay, I got mine. It's time we got rid of the RBA.
The Reserve Bank of Australia.
Yeah, the Reserve Bank.
Mm-hmm.
Andos, what's yours?
My conclusion is that I think you could scientifically prove the Kardashian curse is real.
Kardashian curse, for anyone who doesn't know, is that when an NBA star is dating a Kardashian,
Well, anyone really.
or anyone really, they become hot trash.
Just in all aspects.
Just a bad.
in
I think
all
you'd
aspects.
scientifically prove that to be true.
Well, I'd love to hear your scientific method on that one.
Okay, near Andos scientifically break that down. We're happy to give that to Andos again.
Yeah, we can give it to
Once,
Andos
once again, you two serve up some hot trash, and I've left the impromptu scraps. But you know what? I think you can do it.
Okay, alrighty. Alright, well, we're going to kick it off with the domestic story. Dougal has updated the format, as you would know from last week. So we're doing domestic story, then we're going to mix it up, then we're going to do a bit of an international story, but with the splattering of beta males of the week, just mixed among
along the way.
just to keep the viewers engaged and the
Just
listeners
have
entertained.
a thinking, is this the beta male? Is it?
Is it?
Who knows? It's a
It's a
mystery.
little bit like a Agatha Christie. Everyone's a character. Everyone's a suspect.
Who done it?
Who done it? Who did it? We're about to find out. So we're going to kick it off this week with the resignation of J Bish, no ring, all swish, Julie Bishop. Julie Bishop has resigned from the seat of Curtin after 21 years in Parliament.
You could say the curtain's closing on this career for JB.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. So she ends a run of 21 years in Parliament. Comes months after she quit her role as Foreign Minister. So she quit that after a failed leadership coup where she scored, well, if we're going to do a scorecard, she got 11 votes out of 85, including her own. So it was really 10 out of 85.
Maybe out of 84.
Yeah, well, I guess so.
Still not great odds.
Still not
Whichever
great.
way you look at it, not great odds for JB.
Anyway, so Scott Morrison had a quote, and this potentially could be our next Prime Minister with the way things are shaping up after kind of the debacle Bill Shorten has had over his Nauru decision.
Well, he is the Prime Minister.
He is the Prime Minister.
He's not the next one. He is this
I
one.
mean, after the next election, you know what I mean.
Gee whiz.
Anyway, Scott ScoMo comes out with a cracker. He said, quote, her successor will have big shoes to fill, and we know that Julie has big shoes.
What does that mean?
I don't know.
Big socks.
Big socks. Yeah, we know that, but yeah, it's a bizarre quote from ScoMo, but
Real sensitive, I think. Nice male touch on the issue.
well, so I thought in light of Julie's resignation, we might go through a bit of her highlights and lowlights. A bit of good Julie, bad Julie.
Good Julie, bad Julie. Great segment.
So we're going to kick it off with bad Julie because we're doing this in threes and there's 2 bads and 1 good. So the Clinton Foundation controversy, as our listeners will know, we're massive fans of the Clintons. Shout out to Seth Rich.
They get a lot of real estate in this podcast.
They get
airtime.
They get a massive amount of real estate, and you know what? This segment ties in quite nicely with our last Russia segment. Cool. So Clinton Foundation controversy. So by December 2008, the Clinton Foundation had reported that Australia was its largest Western government donor. Under Bishop, it had reached 130 mil.
Yeah, and we're not even like a big Western country. There's a lot of Western countries that are way bigger.
Yeah.
It's an absolute travesty that we're the biggest donator.
So we should recognise the fact that the Clinton Foundation is still under FBI investigation.
As it should be.
As it should be.
But not under Andy McCabe and
Mr. Como.
Mr. Como and co.
So we should go back. We should go back to the 22nd of February 2006. The Foreign Minister Alexander Downer and Bill Clinton signed a $25 million memorandum of understanding, triggering the first round of Australian donations to Clinton Foundation. Now, the Clinton Foundation recipient entity was the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative. Now, Australian due diligence failed to detect that the entity did not hold the necessary US authority to operate in the treatment of HIV/AIDS. So we've got a body designed to treat HIV/AIDS, which it's not allowed to do. Kind of like a doctor not allowed to practice medicine. Almost exactly that. So we should also recognise that it was less than a year later, well, really about a year later, the entity was wound up by the Massachusetts corporate regulator, effective 31st of December 2007. So that was a quick wrap up.
It's just
You want
like
to talk about a wrap?
It's just like the doctor that's not Dr. Hibbert on The Simpsons. I think it's Dr. Ned. I think his name is the big crazy
Dr.
doctor.
Nick.
Dr. Nick. Yeah.
Hi everybody, Dr. Nick. Yeah. So, but this is great because you should remember that I didn't really cover this in the Russiagate, but Alexander Downer was the guy who supposedly tipped off George Papadopoulos, who was working on the Trump campaign. And so George Papadopoulos and Alexander Downer met for a couple of drinks one night, and Alexander Downer then reported back to the FBI that George Papadopoulos had indicated that they had got information from the Russians regarding the Clintons. So now you've got so we go back to 2006. Old mate Downsy and Bill the Clintos were signing memorandums of understanding for 25 mil to the Clinton Foundation. So you can see that everyone's kind of friends here in this type of situation, aren't they? Anyways,
Deep state tentacles.
Deep state tentacles. So under Bishop, it reached $130 million. We don't like that. That's bad. That's bad, Julie.
Especially, I think we probably had a decent deficit. Wait, what time was this?
2000. So that was 2006. So
2006. So we were in the green. We were okay.
We were in the green then.
We were in the green then.
People were starting to get sloppy with the money. Anyways, so that's bad, Julie.
Bad Julie.
Cool, good Julie. Julie Bishop, according to Julian Assange's Australian lawyer.
Good Julie.
Good Julie. This is good Julie.
Great
Helped Jay Assange get the passport.
This is recent.
This is very recent. So it's actually went quite underreported because we know that the Australian media isn't actually a big fan of Julian Assange.
They don't like Australian citizens. They don't like helping Australian citizens in trouble.
No, they don't. They don't. They're a massive fan of helping people from like Iran and stuff.
ISIS brides come
Yeah.
back.
The footballer.
They don't mind the footballer who's stuck overseas, but Julian Assange, who's been in the Ecuadorian embassy since 2012, who's super sick as well. He's not in good nick, as you can imagine, when you're confined to an embassy. Really lack of natural sunlight, amongst other things, as well as the stress of not knowing your status. Yeah, thanks a lot. But
Good Julie.
Good Julie now, obviously
Took her a while.
took her a while. In fairness, she wasn't really in charge in 2012. That wasn't really her call. But it's taken a while, and I think she should have taken probably a more public stance on it. But that being said, helping him get the passport, I think is good, Julie. Can we agree?
Good Julie.
We should remember that. So Julian Assange, the reason why he had to go and find asylum was because he was trying to be extradited by the Swedish government for rape allegations. Those have since been dropped. But also he was under investigation by the FBI, no less, and the CIA for his role in leaking information regarding the US army in Iraq. So what Julian Assange did, and WikiLeaks, was They leaked a whole bunch of information which suggested that the Iraq War was not exactly as it was being reported. It was actually a fair bit more gruesome. There were some enhanced interrogation techniques, as we like to call them, as well as a whole bunch of Iraqi civilians being killed. So that's why he was originally under investigation by the FBI and the US. And now, of course, you have the hacking of the DNC. So WikiLeaks released the information that was allegedly taken by the Russians. I don't think it was the Russians. I think it was actually Seth Rich, or it was someone close to the campaign, because as I mentioned last time, the USB downloads, the download speed of the emails was too fast for it to be done over the internet, particularly by Russians. You would that's too far away. Because proximity is actually quite important when you're doing cyber attacks. So yeah, that's why Assange is in the Ecuadorian embassy, because he thinks as well that if he leaves, the Swedish allegation was only propped up as a means by which to get him extradited to the US. So that was his allegation, and I reckon he's got pretty good grounds for that. The FBI want to sting Assange with this in conjunction with helping with the Russians, but I reckon it was really, they got to take a long hard look in the mirror. You guys are okay with that analysis? You want to jump in, Dukes, or is that?
No, I thought it was good. It was good, Julie, getting a passport, but we know the best Julie is in the Ecuadorian embassy.
That's right.
I was going to make that joke, but it's all right. You have that one, Dukes. You have that one.
Early bird gets the good worm.
Okay, so we've got Assange, and we're a big fan of Assange, well, at least I am on this program.
Like Julie, great hair.
Great, he does have great hair, doesn't he?
Great hair.
He's got grey and great hair. Okay, now bad Julie to top it all off. We're going to talk about
Bad Julie.
Bad Julie. So Julie Bishop said relatively recently, it's not except in reference to the Liberal Party. So obviously gender quotas have come up a fair bit quite recently. So particularly ABC journos really love banging on about the gender quotas.
Love quotas.
They love quotas there. Julie Bishop said, it's not acceptable for our party, in relation to Liberals, to contribute to the fall in Australia's ratings from 15th in the world in terms of female parliamentary representation in 1999 to 50th today. So I guess the implication there is that the representation is not acceptable, so therefore it needs rectification, and to do that, if you left it organically, would mean is kind of suggesting that the Liberal Party is a sexist and that it needs to be rectified, and so that kind of implicitly means quotas. It's like affirmative action. Would that be?
Now, I'd say two things there. Firstly, to Julie, I would say brings into question your core feminist values. If you were a real feminist, in my eyes, you would say women would be able to get there on their own merit. Not that women need artificial help to get there.
Particularly from the blokes.
A lot of women believe that they're good enough, so therefore they should make it to the top. Now, the second thing that I would say to Julie, which is related to this, is that it was kind of a joke she made on a segment of a TV show, but I don't think it was a joke. Everyone kind of laughed and smiled and gave each other. It was like the girls around the table singing Kumbaya.
Bit of the View action,
like
in
the View.
US.
And Julie says, yeah. I feel like women don't get, enough airtime in the cabinet meeting rooms. Their voices aren't heard enough. They're not respected. So when a woman says anything in the cabinet or has an idea, I just support it regardless of what it is. Now, you're getting that from the Deputy Prime Minister, who just supports willy-nilly ideas in the cabinet room based on the genitalia of the person who says it. Now, that's not what we vote them in for. That's a bit of ideology creeping its way in.
That's exactly what we would hope would not happen.
That's a bit of bad Julie.
Because if you argue that that's appropriate, then you shouldn't be upset if all the blokes back what the other blokes say.
Sure. Matter of principles.
Andos, what do you reckon? Throw in on the gender quotas.
Oh, I think you guys covered it quite well, to be honest.
Thanks, Andos.
Thanks, mate.
It's bad Julie.
There's no question it's bad Julie, and
she can do better. That's the problem. We've seen that she's got some good stuff that she can do, i.e. the Assange things. So she does have the capability to do good, especially in a prominent seat of power in the government. So she needs to do better.
She should be better. And what we were going to say as well, Dukes, I remember you brought this up when we were having a chat, was that we really hope that she doesn't just end up on the board of some Clinton charity. Because
like
if she did,
Julia Gillard did. Now, Julia Gillard's got a hot seat in the Clinton Foundation after being in the government, which also donated a lot of money to the Clinton Foundation. So she chills back, best mates with Hillary. They're both boss girls, girl bosses, empowered. They
Sisters doing it for themselves.
Making cash money by being a whole lot of corrupt is what it looks like. So yeah, if Julie Bishop ends up taking any Clinton-related position after she retires, you bet your bottom dollar we'll be marching in the streets, we'll be starting petitions, we'll be making posters, and we'll see what we can do to get
Yeah, she
it.
better not. She better not. If she, yeah.
That would be another bad Julie segment. That's what she'd get.
She'd get a bad Julie podcast. All right, let's kick it on. We got to be conscious of time.
We've got to be
tend
conscious of time.
on.
Okay, now before we go on to the international story, which will be Trump's national emergency, we're going to do a smaller international story, but one that's probably much more entertaining. This is the story of Jussie Smollet, aka Dr. J, because he's been doctoring some hate crimes. Now,
He's also been smoking them J's.
He's also
now,
been slam dunking the fake news.
If you haven't been paying
Dr. J
attention
style.
to the news, there's a guy in America. He's famous for being an actor on the TV show Empire. Jussie Smollett. Now, he alleges about a week ago he got attacked in like midnight in Chicago by two white guys wearing "Make America Great Again" hats, who spotted him walking home in the night. This black guy walking home in the night, spotted him, went up, had a noose and bleach on them, tied him up in the noose, poured bleach on him, yelled, "This is MAGA country," and then ran away. Now,
He was on the phone to someone, wasn't he?
Jussie Smollett comes out in an interview post alleged attack, and I'm going to read you a few quotes just so you can really understand the vibe. He says, Kamala Harris called it a modern day lynching. Jussie came out and said, if they get to go free, go about their life and possibly attack someone else, and I'm here left with the aftermath of this bull, that's not cool to me. That's not okay. Now, what we find out later is that Jussie had paid two black guys, not white guys, $3,500 each, with the promise of an extra $500 each to do it to him. Jussie paid for the bleach, paid for the rope, and had orchestrated the whole thing. Now, this comes after Jussie, a few weeks ago, had sent himself a racist letter, which also came out recently as a result of this investigation, calling him, because he's black and because he's gay, he's calling himself all these homophobic terms in the letter. Racist slurs. And he says, he said in an interview, I want a little gay boy to see that I fought effing back. I fought back against these white guys. Now, there's a few things most people could notice were a bit suspicious in the attack. First of all, what were two white men with MAGA hats doing at night time in Chicago?
In the most dangerous city in America.
The most dangerous city in America. It's the most dangerous city in the world, I think, maybe even ahead of Syria, the Syrian cities.
In terms of number of fatalities.
In terms of number of fatalities, you'd rather be in Aleppo than in Chicago. Now, so first of all, that's strange. And we know that almost all black people are Democrats in America, the overwhelming majority.
It's north of 95%. Dropping down now, but it's north of 90%.
And so to wear a MAGA hat in Chicago, nobody does that.
At 12 a.m.
At 12 a.m. Nobody does that. Second of all, there are no Trump supporters who watch Empire.
Yeah.
So why on earth would they be able to recognise Smollett, especially at night? Now, third and final thing is that tying on from the fact that no Trump supporters watch Empire, they wouldn't know the "this is MAGA country" line from Empire because nobody watches it. That might be more believable to say "Make America Great Again" or "This is America," but they wouldn't say "This is MAGA country" because no MAGA supporters watch the damn show.
Yeah,
So, Smollett, however you want to say it, Dr. J, is up for. He's getting prosecuted now for
Class 4 felony
Class
charge.
4 felony charge, disorderly conduct, and for filing a false police report. Now, after Kamala Harris and Cory Booker called it a modern-day lynching, a whole lot of celebrities came out in support of Jussie, said he was, the victim of racism, blah, blah, blah. Now, when asked about it, they say we're still waiting for the facts to come in. Now, one celebrity I will give a bit of credit to is Trevor Noah, who said that initially when the story was breaking, we were supporting Jussie because he was a victim of homophobia and racism, and we liked him, we supported him, but now we're judging him on just being an asshole. That's what Trevor Noah said. That's the quote. And so we're judging him on the content of his character rather than the colour of his skin, and that's progress. So we get good work, Trevor Noah.
I'm not going to give him a good work.
Not often we get a good work from Trevor.
I'm not going to give Trevor a good work because I'm going to jump in here. I'm sorry, but he loves jumping in on the bandwagon when this type of stuff happens, and he did initially as well. So it's not good enough for me to say in hindsight, after more information comes out, he's done something wrong here. From the outset, you need this was out of a movie. You wouldn't even people if you were watching this. Jussie Smollett's recollection of what happened in the cinemas, you'd say to your mate, okay, now this is just getting a little bit out of hand. This is MAGA country, are you kidding? No one says that, right? You would say, this is getting a bit ridiculous. So I think anyone with 2 seconds of skepticism would say,
No, I would say that you need to analyse Noah's response in the context of a lot of other celebrities. Because almost all the other celebrities are saying, yeah, well, this hate crime might have been fake, but it's in the context of millions of other hate crimes which are going up. It's a president that's racist. There's so many other hate crimes going on. He's still the victim because he's gay and black.
No.
And you know what? The last point I'd say on this is that a key part of the alleged hate crime was the fact that the 2 guys were white, right? Now, can we imagine if the key part of it was that they were black? People would be like, "Oh, they might even say it's racist by just reporting the fact that they're black." As we know that in England, there's police that don't report on the Pakistani rape cases.
Well, in Sweden they do the same thing. They refuse to collect statistics on crime on the basis of race.
Because they might be considered racist. Now, even in the aftermath. Nobody's apologising to the MAGA supporters. Nobody's apologising to Trump supporters or white people. They're still saying white people are oppressing black people, and it's a bit rich. I have to say, it's a bit rich.
Well, I'm just going to say I don't want to give this kind of relative morality where we say, well, in the context of other Hollywood people, Trevor Noah gets kind of a good mark. I'll say, well, his mark still sucks. You got a 65 and everyone else got a 20. I am not surprised. But what we should do, there is a compilation of all the reactions to the Jussie Smollett case. Now, Mark Dice put it up. We're going to give a shout out to Mark Dice for doing that. We're going to put the compilation up of all the reactions. You should see. You're not going to believe some of this. It is unbelievable. Andos, why don't you chime in?
I think my main thing is, I think Jussie Smollett, personally, I hadn't heard who the heck he was before this. I think if the rationale to go after, if you were going to commit a hate crime and go after a famous black person, I don't think you'd go after Jussie Smollett, which is one thing that sort of comes to mind. Even if you're looking at the Empire cast, you'd go for someone like Terrence Howard or someone like that who's actually got a bit of clout. Jussie Smollett isn't,
practically an extra.
He's practically an extra. You obviously think you're something else if you think people are committing hate crimes against you and faking it and people believing it's real. Come on, you're getting too big for your boots, mate.
The rumour was that he was getting written out of the show. So this was the rumour going around, that he was getting written out of the show and that this was a way for him to kind of elevate himself in the cast.
He has been written out now. The police are coming out and saying that the motive for the attack was that he wanted to get paid more, same as the motive for the letter. Might be true, probably part of it. I also think he just wants to develop the victimhood narrative. the oppressive
I think he's
narrative.
also got to be something mentally ill. That's
it's-
Trump derangement syndrome at the max.
Mhm.
TDS. All right, let's move
Right.
on.
Now,
We're gonna do it.
international story.
Speaking of the Trump star,
We're doing Trump's national emergency.
Ooh.
So, after failing to secure funding in the House for $5 to $6 billion for a border wall, we know the famous shutdown that happened over that for, I think, 21 days. Trump's declared a national emergency to unlock billions of dollars in federal funds to build a wall on the southern border, bypassing Congress after lawmakers refused to meet his multi-billion-dollar request for wall funds. Now, you usually call national emergencies for like a war or an international crisis, natural disaster. Basically, a national emergency gives the president power to divert funds away from other causes and concentrate them on, whatever the emergency is. So he's done that for building a wall. Trump says it's a great thing to do because we have an invasion of drugs, an invasion of gangs, and an invasion of people, and it's unacceptable. Just a relevant fact is that in 2018, Customs and Border Protection apprehended nearly 400,000 people along the southwest border. That's probably not all the people that crossed. And for anyone who doesn't know, essentially what happens when someone crosses the Border Protection agents, if they can, go and catch them, write their name down, let them go back into America, and then hopefully see them in court 2 to 3 years later because the court system's so clogged up, and then guess what? You never see them again. So that's what usually happens. So Trump's declared a national emergency. Now, this national emergency happened, he called it concurrently with signing a spending bill which allocated $1.375 billion for 55 more miles of fencing along the southern border. But he wants, a full $6 billion, so that's why it's called a national emergency. And so altogether, he's going to get about $8 billion, hopefully. Now, Democrats have already said that they're going to challenge the national emergency in the courts. Trump says there's a good chance his national emergency funds will get rejected on the Ninth Circuit courts. And hopefully after they get appealed enough times, it'll go to the Supreme Court where they'll give him a favourable ruling. Now, it has some bipartisan criticism. Naturally, Democrat House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer have criticised the national emergency for not really being an emergency, but using it for politics. And it's also been criticised by Rand Paul and Marco Rubio. Now, I am quite sympathetic with the naysayers, with the criticisms. It might be up for debate to what extent it's really a national emergency. I'm not 100% sold that you get to call a national emergency on this. I feel like it's a little bit unconstitutional. The Constitution is set up in such a way that it doesn't really dictate what things get passed, but it dictates how things get passed, how things come into action. And so when you bypass the Constitution, with the Senate and the House and the President and how they interrelate and how you pass legislation for political purposes, and can you fix the camera? I then get nervous that future governments are going to use this as a precedent to do bad things, essentially, to do whatever they want without the consent of Congress and by extension the American people. That's my initial reaction, is skepticism. Are you going to support the Trump man on this one?
I'm mixed on it. Because what I would say is, and it's something I mentioned last week, the first obligation of any state is to ensure its own borders. I think estimates have suggested that anywhere between 15 and 30 million illegal immigrants currently reside in the US, the majority of which are Mexican. You can also recognise the fact that there is a significant drug and gang-related problem in the United States. It is no secret that some of the most dangerous gangs are Mexican gangs. That being said, and also you have all the costings associated, like you talk about wage growth, for example. a massive drag on wage growth is when you have somewhere between 15 and 30 million illegal immigrants working for less than the minimum wage because they can't actually go on the minimum wage because they're not actual migrants.
Cash in hand.
Cash in hand. So that obviously drives real wages down. Now, it's as you mentioned, it's totally unconstitutional, and this is where my main skepticism lies. Is we say, well, it is a situation with the border, but the facts are not widely agreed upon. You wouldn't say that it is a formal invasion from the Mexican government. The Mexican government has not declared that we are going to invade the United States. And so in this, there have been many historical examples of where the government has circumvented the laws that define what its powers are. But I don't think that in this instance it was the right way to go. What I would have done is, the Republican base is fired up about the wall. They want the wall, okay? And I have a feeling that and you saw this in the midterms, the Republicans in the midterms which did not back Trump got smashed. Okay, they pretty much all went. So this is why his majority went as well. I would wait until the next election, hopefully get enough in the House, and then try and pass it through there. That's what I would have done. I think at this point in time, there's about 51 current states of emergency. So it does it's not totally uncommon for a state of emergency to be called and to be continuing as well. You go back to, I think it was Abraham Lincoln or something in the Civil War. There are obviously rules and regulations that get bypassed. He suspended habeas corpus. I'm mixed on it.
Sure.
If it is a genuine emergency,
then it should be up to the American people really to put in candidates who are going to act on it. Then.
Yeah.
So I don't really like it from Trump. Now, what I see, why I say it might set a dangerous precedent is, let's say Democrats win in 2020 or 2024. Let's say they declare a national emergency for climate change.
Yeah.
Divert all America's resources into fighting climate change. America's, they're up a bad creek.
Well, that would be the Green New Deal.
Well, that would be the Green New Deal.
That would be the Green New Deal.
And so then we're in a whole lot of trouble. So I don't like the fact that Trump has, at this point, almost legitimised that future potentiality.
It's the nuclear option in politics.
Yeah.
It's the nuclear option, and particularly if you don't have the entirety of your own party's support, it is a tough sell.
Sure.
And so Rand Paul is essentially the sitting libertarian guy in the Republican Party, if there is one. Marco Rubio is fairly, I would say, hard right, in the sense that he's reasonably conservative, far more so than a lot of the kind of rhino Republicans you find in the Republican Party. But it also still doesn't guarantee the wall.
Yeah,
it doesn't guarantee the wall. So there is obviously checks and balances to the emergency. I'm mixed on it. I don't think it's great Trump.
No.
I'm sympathetic to the argument though that it does secure the borders. That's got to be the first obligation of any state. So I'm mixed. 50-50
now,
from Camo.
I'd like Andos to give us a quick go on John Blake, CNN, stop white-explaining racism to me. While we're on international stories, give us the CNN take.
So once again, it's another meme that we found off Your Lord and Saviour Instagram that once again I thought was fake news.
You look at it and you think that's got to be a meme.
That has got to be something, that's got to be the fake news added again. Nice meme off a meme page. But no.
It's like that scene in The Other Guys, when Will Ferrell's going to Mark Wahlberg, he says, at first glance it's FBI, but at second glance, female body inspector?
Get out of town.
Are you serious?
It's exactly what it is. John Blake, CNN, blown it out of the water, pulled a Chauncey de Vega from last week. Stop white-splaining racism to me is the title of the article, with a big photo of Liam Neeson at the top. Not sure how I feel about that, to be honest, but the article starts, it goes, health officials issue public warnings about spikes in everything, from the flu to the measles, but there is one contagion authorities are ignoring. We are facing another outbreak of white-splaining.
Not white-splaining. Anything but white-splaining.
Oh, for the love of God.
So, for those who don't know what whitesplaining is, it's an affliction that's triggered when some white people hear a person of colour complain about racism. All right?
It's on par with the flu and the measles, if you didn't know.
Oh, no.
It's
on par with meningococcal.
Meningococcal, Hep B.
It's the brother of mansplaining, which is also a very hot topic, something, a national emergency we might need to be looking at. But Blake says the implication of whitesplaining is that these white people know more about how racism operates than those who've struggled against it for much of their lives, right? So it's pretty much, the article goes on. It also talks about how especially white men are just vulnerable to whitesplaining and do it a lot, even sometimes without them knowing. But
stay in your lane, white people.
White
Stay
Bit of unconscious bias.
Check yourself.
yeah, so he says, but there are different strains of whitesplaining, but what unites them all is the belief that white people are more qualified to decide what's racist and what's not. So, strong candidacy for beta male of the week. It also talks about how white people also define what beauty is, what other standards such as that in society, especially white males.
So what you get, it's a very nice tactic where you say, you're racist and you don't get to have a say on what racism is because you are the
affected by
problem.
it.
Number one, you don't know what racism is. Second thing is, most of the time you don't even know you're doing it. So you've got a situation where you can't talk about something that you don't know what's happening, you don't know anything about it, and you don't even know you're doing it.
It's convenient, isn't it?
Now, I read the comments on this. Now, what's his name?
John Blake.
John Blake. So John Blake on Twitter posted this article, and he got a bunch of comments with some skepticism, as you can imagine, by some of the viewers. And then someone said, would you regard this as a analysis level piece? Does this count as news analysis? John Blake replied, I hope so.
Well,
yes.
It says on CNN.com, it says, stop whitesplaining racism to me. Analysis by John Blake, CNN.
Well, there we go.
I love how it's analysis. There's not one fact in there.
There's not one.
You know what it is? It's like Scientology, or it's something where you have to buy into this conceptualization framework of society being different structures of power based on group identities. And if you buy into that, then it makes sense. But if you don't buy into it, it's a whole load of mumbo jumbo.
Well, Friedrich Hayek, right? Friedrich Hayek, who was one of the...
Hayek, great economist.
Yeah, Austrian economist. He says, well, why do intellectuals drift towards socialism, right? And one of his arguments is, well, intellectuals he defines people who deal in ideas, right? Second-hand dealers in ideas primarily. He said, well, one of the assumptions that they make is that these intellectuals operate on the assumption that they have to explain somehow why the world works the way it is, right? And so there's one explanation where you can say, for instance, this is what some Austrian libertarians would say, well, there's an innumerable amount of dynamic forces which are at play, and no one thing is exactly responsible for something else. So there are a whole range of reasons why an outcome might take place. For example, you say, well, why were the Japanese so poor before 1600? Well, one of the reasons was they couldn't trade because the invention of the boats weren't capable of getting to them, and as well the invention of air travel didn't allow them to trade, whatever. And they adopted an isolationist policy. Another explanation will be, well, white people were racist, they didn't want to go to Japan, right? So these intellectuals have this affection for explaining the way everything is in a really simplistic means, and it often means that they have the solution as well. So it's much easier to say, well, blacks are poor because white people are racist than it is to say, well, there are a number of factors. You have minimum wage, you have the breakdown of the family, you have the civil rights movement, which actually made it harder for them to get jobs. You have, all this thing. It's much easier to explain something relatively simply than it is to say, well, I don't really know exactly.
That's what Winston Churchill said. The biggest mistake of historians in writing history is applying simple motives to historical actors.
I think your analysis is right there, Alex, except you calling John Blake an intellectual. That's something I would disagree upon. I don't think he is.
Well,
pseudo-intellectual.
He's a pseudo-intellectual.
So
yes.
He's a beta male. I don't think he takes out the
he gets a nomination. So he gets a nomination. So I'll then take on the second story. for Beta Male of the Week. And
Oh, well, that's the
it's
third.
part of a big story. It's part of a big story. So the big story is that conspiracy theorist David Icke gets banned from Australia. He had an upcoming speaking tour. He promised he's going to blow your mind with a set of alternative facts. Some of them including that the world is run by part human, part lizard people. So the Queen allegedly is part lizard. I think a lot of the presidents and prime ministers are part lizard, according to David Icke. He also doesn't believe in the Holocaust. And this was the sticking point for the Australian government. So what happened was, community groups such as the Anti-Defamation Commission and the Executive Council of Australian Jewry successfully lobbied Immigration Minister David Coleman to ban Mr. Icke, so he doesn't get his visa. So he was banned this week, only a couple of days ago. His comment was, "This is the creation of a blatantly Orwellian totalitarian state." And he says that the Australian government currently believes they have the right to dictate what the Australian people can and cannot choose to hear. Now, David, I would say I disagree with basically all of your content, but you are absolutely correct in principle. This is the creation of a government that believes they can dictate what the Australian people can and cannot choose to hear. I would have a message to the Executive Council of Australian Jewry, who lobbied to get his visa banned, which is that if you are concerned about discrimination and about being oppressed, freedom of speech should be your number one priority. Because as long as you have freedom of speech and you can talk about exactly what's happening, and you make sure everybody's right to freedom of speech is protected, that is your biggest way of safekeeping your people, right? Because as soon as you get a real anti-Semitic government who might want to do bad things to you, if there's a precedent of banning free speech, then guess what? You're in trouble. You're in trouble. It's in your vested interest to keep everybody's free speech protected, so that when it comes to you, when you guys are in trouble, your free speech is protected as well. So the first of the three nominations for Beta Male of the Week in this story goes to Immigration Minister David Coleman, who folded on free speech. Now the second two get a combo nomination, and these are two men who we usually like, respect, and who we think are usually right. That's Outsiders host Rowan Dean and Bolt Report host Andrew Bolt. Now, I only briefly saw this segment while I was just, tottering around the house, and our darling mother was watching Bolt Report. And Bolt brought on Rowan.
After dark.
Bolt brought on Rowan, and he said to Rowan, "What do you think about banning this guy, David Icke?" And Rowan says, "Yeah, well, I think Holocaust denial is a special case, and anyone who denies the Holocaust shouldn't be allowed a visa into Australia." Now, Rowan, who has historically been a free speech crusader, based on the idea that free speech means free speech for everyone, not just free speech for people you agree with, in my opinion, has totally sold out. He's decided that free speech should be restricted by your own personal morality of what you think is socially acceptable to say, and by extension, should not be surprised if a Labor government goes in and bans outsiders for being offensive. Now, if you think the Holocaust is offensive, therefore they shouldn't, we should be banning visas to people or having government regulations surrounding what you can and can't say, the Labor or the Green idea of what's offensive is much more restrictive, but it's the same in principle. That you should be able to ban people based on what you personally think is offensive. Now, what I'd also say is that if you go to anywhere in Central Asia, or a lot of people, or go to a lot of people in the Middle East, a lot of people will tell you there's no evidence for the Holocaust. Now, I don't believe that. Okay, I think most Australians who listen to credible historians and who study history themselves will understand that the Holocaust did happen. But nonetheless, there are hundreds of millions of people who don't believe that. You look at a nation like Turkey, most of its inhabitants don't believe in the Armenian genocide. You look at a nation like Japan, most of the Japanese inhabitants don't believe in the massacre of Nanjing. Does that mean we should go ahead and ban every coming speaker or citizen from Turkey or from Japan? It's like you can't just make a mark in the sand here and say, well, this is where we're going to ban people from coming in to talk into Australia. If you want to keep freedom of speech alive, then you have to protect it for everybody. Because if you want to get the Darwins, if you want to get the Socrates, if you want to get the Galileos, you have to also accept the racists and the homophobes and everybody else. And you have to trust that the demos society will eventually get it right. They'll be able to sift through the BS and come to the right conclusions. And as far as we can tell, you don't really believe in free speech, as what we saw this week. So you get a nomination, Rowan. Bolt also gets a nomination for a weak defence, where he just said, "Look, I know what you're saying, Rowan, but I'm just not sure about banning." Bolt, that's weak.
That's Andos in Seattle.
That's weak. That's beta. So we've got a triple nomination for Beta Male of the Week: David Coleman, Rowan Dean, and Andrew Bolt.
Well, I've actually got two responses to that story.
Oh, here we go. I love it when Andos chips in.
Yeah. The first of which is free Tyler, the Creator. Let him come to Australia. He'd had some banging shows here. He's still banned for misogynistic comments or something. I don't know. But free Tyler. And the second of which is, I think it's somewhat dangerous because the dinguses who would consider Ike's ideology and go, maybe there are some lizard people, rather than who would go to the show and be like, and some of them would go, probably BS, others would believe it or whatever. But by you banning Ike, I think it makes them go, he might be right. The lizard people are controlling me.
Yeah.
Let's get the lizard people out of here, Ike, like the king. So I think it's dangerous to be, you're almost supporting Ike's ideology and saying that like the people in charge are oppressing free speech. I think that's dangerous to have these dinguses empowered.
I agree with you. I would say, Jordan Peterson often talks about the fact that in situations where free speech is oppressed, the opinions which are oppressed are not actually extinguished. They're actually allowed to grow and fester and become inflamed in kind of an underground situation. And what you end up happening is a revival, which is often far more dangerous, far more radical than the original proposition.
Well, what it is actually called, I think, is the Streisand effect.
Yeah.
Those of you might remember Barbara Streisand. She was in a local argument with, I think, some of the local press who kept videoing her house. So then she got into a big argument with them saying, "Stop videoing my damn house." Now, lo and behold, this became a national and international story whereby everybody saw this Barbara Streisand's house. And this might be the latest incarnation of that effect.
Well, the first thing, I just wanted to make the point, I'm enormously sympathetic to the Jews. Okay, and we should make that absolutely clear. And you want to talk about racism, it would be difficult to find a group of people more oppressed and more systematically discriminated against throughout history than the Jews. I don't think there is. I think they are number one. If you talk about proportion of the population and then proportion which get booted, exiled, executed, whatever, I think the Jews are, I reckon they could be daylight for second. But Dougal is absolutely right, and I'm happy to stick the boot into Rowan as well. I think Rowan deserves a massive touch-up on this. The old free speech for me, but not for thee, is so incredibly dangerous. And Dougal is absolutely right when he says that the best defence and the best friend of the Australian jury is free speech. Because if history is anything to go by, the Jews should not be surprised if they get discriminated against again. There is absolutely an anti-Semitic sentiment. If you look particularly among the left, you look at the Australian Labor Party, you look at the British Labor Party, Jeremy Corbyn is a noted anti-Semite. You look at many members of the US Congress, which have strong friendships with people like Louis Farrakhan and members of the Islamic League in the United States. There is a serious threat to Semitism in the West, particularly. So I would say you guys have got to switch on here. The free speech is absolutely your number one best friend. And if you continue to act like this, and people like Rowan Dean, if he was a friend of the Jewish people, would say, hang on a second, let this guy speak, he's a lunatic, everyone's going to see he's a lunatic, let it die. You give this thing a second life when you put people underground. You see what happens when Alex Jones went got taken off YouTube.
Or Milo Yiannopoulos.
Milo Yiannopoulos, they get in the only platforms where they're allowed, they get absolutely pumped full of ratings. Okay, they never sell more stuff than when they get banned from one of the stations. Do your homework. Free speech is not just for you when you feel like it and when you feel like, oh, the white guy's being oppressed. Whatever, dude. I don't take what you say seriously now. You've sold out. Go to buggery, as far as I'm concerned. That's ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous. Now,
Get out.
while Alex was giving his serious spiel on the jury, I smiled not because of any of the content, but because our lovely dog pranced up, and I don't know if she made it into the camera, but no, I also agree with Alex. It's a serious question on the juries. I just didn't want those things to be conflated.
Sure. It's a
Now,
beautiful
so
dog,
let's consider. We've got the triple threat beta male nomination. We've got Jussie Smollet, and we've got
John Blake.
We've got John Blake. Now,
Sure.
the only reason why we might give it to Rowan Dean and co is because they used to be on the right team and then they sold out to the wrong team. Jussie Smollet is in all types of trouble. He should be given beta male of the universe. And our friend Blake is just a regular beta. So I think it's between Smollett and and Coleman and Sky News.
The triumvirate, the third triumvirate. I think it's going to go
The
to
sellout
Just.
triumvirate.
Just man.
Andy votes for Just.
The reason why the Dean one is so bad is because at least the people who are real against free speech don't pretend they're for free speech. You know,
Yeah,
it's
you
a real,
can
it's a
see
real,
where they're at.
it's a Brutus Julius Caesar type of betrayal. This one, and it kind of stings a little bit. I saw it a little bit with Jordan Peterson. It really does hurt. But I think Jussie Smollett, only because of the scale and because of the extent to which he went with his Trump derangement syndrome.
Lock him up. He's a racist. I don't know why people are hesitant to use the word of racist against him.
Yeah,
now, it might be because of this pseudo-scientific sociology idea that you can't be racist to white people. It's absolute BS. You absolutely can. And Jussie Smollett has been racist to white people in this last week.
Dude, I don't think he's racist as much as I just think he's just such a low IQ individual.
He's a low IQ individual.
He's a low IQ individual. I'm happy for it to go to Jussie. Jussie deserves. I'd say throw the kitchen sink at him. I hope it's not just class 4 felony charges. I hope it's.
It's 1 to 3 years jail time, I think.
He won't serve anything. It was 1 to 3. Particularly if he gets charged in LA, which I think, or Chicago, their prison is so overrun. He'll get a 6-month good behaviour bond or something like that. But he's just a resident lunatic.
I wish he would get the same thing that he argued the white people should get. I wish that's what he got.
Oh yeah, I reckon they should treat it as if he actually performed the assault that they did, because that's the same thing.
Yeah.
Hey, could you just imagine though if 2 white guys happened to get prosecuted for that?
Yeah. Yeah, and he put Bella outside. Great.
He's our biggest fan of the show.
Biggest fan, consistent listener. Great feedback.
I don't know how much.
No negative comments.
She's a pretty dopey dog, but she's very soft and very fluffy.
Very affectionate.
Super affectionate.
Now we get
awful
to
guard dog.
Awful guard dog. We get to the final segment, which is where Andos gets to shine.
This is my favourite bits of the show is we get through all the hard stuff and Andos gets to let rip into someone, particularly this guy, because it's not the first time this guy gets a touch up.
I think this guy's coming in at the end.
Oh, he's coming in at the end. Okay.
So Andos, give us the lowdown on the sports report.
Because the Tristan Thompson does tie well into the jump into conclusions ending. So we'll do that at the end.
Do that at the end.
But I'll go through. We've got three stories as part of the sport report. The first of which being Zion Williamson, the number 1 ranked college basketball prospect, blew out his shoe.
His shoe broke.
His shoe machine broke. His Nike PG 2.5s broke 33 seconds into the biggest college game of the year thus far, Duke versus North Carolina.
Oh, it's always the biggest game of the year.
Always.
It could be the biggest rivalry in sports.
It is. Big call.
Who's bigger?
Big call. I mean, Real Madrid, Barcelona. That's bigger. I'm not sure what you're trying to.
Parramatta Eels versus the Bulldogs.
Parramatta Eels versus West Tigers.
Circa 2009, packed out ANZ Stadium. I think it was around 25 or something like that. Massive.
But
80,000 packed in ANZ.
So,
what a game.
So yeah.
Huge game.
So unfortunate. We hope. I think it's just a grade 1.
So it was just like the what do you call it? The seams busted out and his foot came out and he rolled his ankle.
The foot came out of the bottom of the shoe. The shoe split, his foot came out and he sprained his knee.
Now, two interesting details on that. The first is that Barack Obama was watching this game, and right after Zion's shoe broke, the cameras panned to Barack Obama and then zoomed in on him, and you see him saying the words, "His shoe broke." Now, that's bad news for Nike, which is compounded by the advertisement, which was, showcasing Zion Williams' greatness, and they said it's all about the shoe or something like that. That was their catchphrase. It's all in the shoe, and his shoe busted.
I haven't seen that advertisement.
I haven't seen that. The thing I saw like that was, I think it was Skip Bayless said,
he's my man.
Skip.
What
not even the shoe can contain him, or something along the lines where the shoe company that gets him will have such a good an ability to sell the shoe because they're like, yeah, our shoe can contain Zion, this 130 kilo 6'7" kid with these hops, our shoe can contain him. So I think that's huge. Nike's stocks went down 1.5%.
What's that in dollar value? Because they got a pretty big market cap. It would have been. It was like oh no, it'd be more than $1 billion.
It was I think the share price went down 90 cents, from its 80 something, from whatever it was.
It went down. He's a big player, Zion Williamson. Big player, Zion Williamson.
He's huge.
Yeah. I think he's going to be a bust at the next level.
Okay, I don't think he's going to go number one overall.
He shouldn't.
I think it'll be RJ Barrett, Cam Reddish, or what's his name? Raj Moran.
Ja Morant. You two just try to be indie basketball analysts when you just try to let me pick the alternative choice.
You're 6'6" with a big caboodle like that.
Zion Williamson
is
going to be transcendent.
What's he going to play?
The 4.
Playing the 4. 6'6" playing the 4.
6'7".
He's going to be 4 inches shorter than every other.
PJ Tucker plays the 4.
And he's not
Draymond Green's about 6'7", plays the 4.
He's a scrub, so you've listed 2 scrubs.
Listed 2 trash.
2 trash players who wouldn't get minutes on the Knicks.
They get minutes on the...
They're both second-round draft picks.
They're both late second-round picks. And you're not setting a good precedent. This is Endos's Max Kellerman approach. Yeah.
Zion Williamson, we've never seen something quite like that.
We saw Charles Barkley. Charles Barkley was the same type of player.
He's Charles Barkley, except with LeBron's vision.
How come?
The bounce of MJ.
But how's he going to play if he can't wear any shoes?
Well, the thing is, right, most NBA players change their shoes every 2 or 3 games, right? We're not sure how long Zion did because they changed his shoes. But he would need to be changing his shoes every night just because of the sheer explosion that comes through them every time he takes the ball up. I think...
Oh, dude. You're such a hype beast.
He is...
You and your LeBron bandwagon followers who just follow LeBron wherever he goes and say, this kid's the next LeBron. He's good. He hasn't done anything outrageous where you go, yeah, next level, he's going to be able to... He's been bullying kids on his athleticism. He doesn't actually have that refined game.
Averaging 22 and 10 in the NCAA.
Dude, he's going to find out next year.
Look, Luka Doncic is my man. Miss me with this Zion Williamson hype.
Andos, you got to take one.
Look, I reckon
Luka or Zion.
I'll take Luka.
Zion's not even as good as Trae Young, I think.
Okay, well, this is getting out of hand. Let's move on. I'm getting offended.
Zion's not even as good as Mo Bamba.
I'm getting triggered by this.
Second, number 2. This is a big story. And also politically related. Sports and politics.
Also potentially a shout out on this. I'm happy to give...
You want to give a shout out on
this? I'm going to put my shout out.
Shout out.
You're going to take any segment right now?
No, I'm just going to give a shout out to the Espresso Martini. There we go.
Espresso Martina Navratilova, who has been slammed, taken through the cleaners as a result of her transphobic comments. So an LGBT group, Athlete Ally, which she was an ambassador for and was on their board, has cut ties with her. Because
she herself is a lesbian.
She herself is lesbian.
So she's on the LGBT group.
Yeah, so she, and in the 80s when she was playing, she experienced some abuse as a result of her sexuality.
And she won 16 or 17 Grand Slam titles.
She was a beast. She's legit. She's legit.
So she said it was a form of cheating for transgender women to be allowed to compete in women's sport.
Define transgender woman, Andos. That's a person who was previously a man.
Previously a man, now identifies as a woman.
Do they have to have all the organs and genitalia?
Well, I don't think so.
No,
which
I
is,
think the rules are in these commissions that you just have to have a level of testosterone for a year prior to competing.
Yeah.
But, you know, if you've grown up with the amount of testosterone which influences your musculature, your bone density, you know, your weight.
Just a quick by the
Your
by.
lungs.
Did you know that the guys at BuzzFeed, the male journalists at BuzzFeed, took a testosterone test?
They'll have hardly any testosterone.
It's like a quarter of the level of the national average.
Soy.
It's actually all soy milk, and that's a fact. I know Ellie will hates it when I say that the soy milk is to blame for all these betas, but it is. It's the soy milk stuff. Soy boys, get off it. If you're drinking soy, it's bad for you.
There's
So-
the fluoride in the water as well.
It's turning the frogs gay.
The frogs gay.
Make frogs straight again.
So she wrote in the Sunday Times that it was insane that transgender athletes who decided to become female had achieved honours that were beyond their capabilities as men. Her recent comment, so Athlete Ally said in a statement that her recent comments on trans athletes are transphobic, based on a false understanding of science and data, and perpetuate dangerous myths that lead to the ongoing targeting of trans people. Trans women are women, period. They do not decide their gender identity any more than someone decides to be gay or to have blue eyes.
That's
Agree
a
with
false.
that
That's a
one.
dumb example.
It's
That's
not-
a dumb example. The gay one. It's like, Milo Yiannopoulos says the data suggests that it's 50% nature, 50% nurture. He says the data suggests it's 50-50
On what?
on whether a gay's born gay or choose to be gay. That's what he says. Now, obviously I'm not an expert, but I just think if it is a questionable claim, I don't know why they're using that to be an example.
So Navratilova.
I doubt it. I feel like gay people are probably gay the same way I'm hetero. That's what I feel like. That's what I generally feel like.
Yeah, look, I lean towards it, but I'm saying if Milo is saying that the data suggests that there's a possibility.
I mean, who knows? That's the thing. Who knows? But this is. Sorry, dude. Should I cut you off there?
No, you can go.
So this is
Said
where
my piece.
Navratilova becomes my woman crush Wednesday, except it's a Saturday, so it's a little bit controversial. But she said you can't just proclaim yourself a female and be able to compete against women. There must be some standards, and having a penis and competing as a woman would not fit that. She also went on to say that she rejected the accusations of transphobia and added that what seems to be a growing tendency amongst transgender activists to denounce anyone who argues against them and to label them all as transphobes.
Sure. I mean, last week, I think I mentioned, maybe the week before, how the female athletes would go if you put them in the ring with Brock Lesnar after 1 year of testosterone therapy. I mean, it can get dangerous. I mean, when you're talking sports, you're talking anything physical contact, if you're talking like boxing, mixed martial arts, you're even talking rugby. I mean, let's go and take Israel Folau and put him on testosterone reduction pills for a year. See how dangerous that's going to be for the women. There'll be women bodies strewn over the rugby pitch, okay? And at some point, common sense has to take over that says we actually have to protect the women. And a lot of the women are complaining. Like, we see this in not only in non-contact sports, but it's dangerous. You know, you see women competing in like amateur boxing or even professional boxing, where there are rules for, you know, transgender women to compete. It's dangerous.
It's just so stupid. It's so stupid, and this is. There's been several cases where men have transitioned into women and then competed in MMA.
And just beat
And
the
just
living
beating the lights out of these girls, and not only this, and you have a problem with like the records, for example, and you have situations where, let's just say that there are a limited number of spots on the team. You have these girls who have just busted their ass, worked so hard to try and make this team like an Olympic team or something like that, and then the guy who comes in who
Couldn't make it in the
They
men's.
couldn't make it in the men's, transitions into women, decides he's going to go into powerlifting, or he's going to go into something like that,
Or like sprinting or
or
running.
sprinting or running or something like that, and just starts dominating. And then the women are the ones who are worse off than me because of this. It's not the guys, it's the women who are suffering. And these people need to pull their head out and actually, like, the feminists need to be saying, no, this isn't how it's going to go. We're going to separate ourselves from the T in LGBT in this respect, because those are totally antithesis positions. You cannot hold the position that we're for equality, but also, we don't mind men coming across and just whooping up.
Particularly in the tennis.
Yeah, Navratilova said that
maybe
she
I
would
play
not be...
5 sets.
Maybe. Martina said she would not be happy.
Final story related to sports. This is more of a social media story involving a sports star.
Yeah, so this is...
The second feature of...
Hey, don't take his segment.
Gee whiz, I've got one job on this show, and you two come in and try to steal it away from me.
It's to wear that slick shirt you got on.
It's very slick.
Slicko mode.
We've all gone slicko stripey times, so happy about that.
Should see dude's jeans, they are fresh.
But moving on, because we are dribbling, the Tristan Thompson and Jordan Woods cheating saga. Tristan Thompson busted custard for the second time, right? So he was caught in the first time cheating on Khloe Kardashian. They decided that where's he gone off to? Who knows? But they decided, you know what? We've just had our kid, so we're gonna just give it a go, right? Tristan Thompson has been caught going out with the best friend of the family, Jordan Woods, who is Kylie Jenner's gal pal, BFF, babysitter of Stormy, and they've been caught doing the willy-nilly, the horizontal monkey dance.
With the horizontal salsa.
It takes two to tango. We both know that. And
with, horizontal diplomacy.
And for the international language.
And as a result of this, Jordan Woods has been kicked out of Kylie's house. She's going to have all crap taken away from her. Getting cut off. I'll refer to you to the Chicks in the Office, Barstool Sports breakdown of it. Quite funny. That she's just blown away her whole life for a little bit of Tristan Thompson action, which is really controversial because Tristan, once again, proving the Kardashian curse is real. He's turned into hot garbage, and it's the second time he has been doing the monkey dance
that we know of.
That we know of.
Look at his eyes.
That we know of.
Can't keep his hands out the cookie jar.
It was a big cookie, wasn't it? Bit of Jordan Woods.
The cookie monster.
Jordan Woods is going to lose all the clout in the world just for a little bit of Tristan Thompson.
It's got to be the worst career decision.
Yeah, I mean...
Now, that being said, if it pushes Tristan away from the Kardashians, it may be the best move for the Cavs.
But
that being said...
The Cavs owners would love it.
I wouldn't be... Maybe there was some... a little bit of action from the Cavs GM. Paying Jordan.
But
put the move on.
He is tied in with the Kardashians as a result of his child.
He does have a kid. It does complicate things.
That's true.
True Thompson.
Is that his name? True.
Well, I actually don't know the gender of the child, but...
Could be a girl.
Could be a girl. Who knows though? We're not labelling. We're not putting labels on it.
Can't assume.
Well, I don't think that the baby's old enough to decide yet.
It's not. It's obviously not.
It's definitely not old enough to give you consent to change its nappies. That's one good one I've heard.
Gavin McInnes actually had an interesting take on that. Gavin McInnes said, because that was by an ABC journalist, surprise, surprise, talking about whether or not babies, like toddlers, you have to ask to change their nappies and stuff like that. He said, well, yeah, it's good to build up, however, the idea that kids can say no. And that they have a choice in things like, you know, when people say, oh, come and give me a kiss on the cheek, you know, that kids can say no, whatever. So he said, yeah, look, it's a ridiculous example, but the broader point is semi-accurate. I'm mixed.
But I mean, we don't want kids going around with crappy nappies, do we?
It's their choice.
But, okay, I think we're done with this Tristan Thompson. Quite funny.
Okay,
Dukes, have you got something to say about it? Or?
Now, one more tiny shout out before we go to jumping to conclusions finale for this episode.
And also
the segue was perfect.
Now we did talk about sport. This is a sports related shout out. First little charity shout out we've done on the show. I found out about this outside Coles in Epping. there's a nice girl selling pins and scratchies are what they are. If you're into scratchies and pins, this is for you. Basically what it is it's for the Paralympians going to Paralympics in 2020. They need some extra money for like hotels, transport equipment, blah, blah, blah. We particularly like Paralympians because they've obviously had a disability and they didn't stay down in the dumps, they didn't hate life, they didn't embrace, full victimhood narrative, which would be easy to do. They instead decided to go and do something cool, something creative. They put in the hard work, and if you want to go and put some money towards them going to the 2020 Paralympics, you can go to paralympic.org.au, I think. Give them some money, get a scratchy, get a pin,
Love that. We love that.
And I just think, we often talk about beta male of the week and say, well, what is the beta male? Okay, and I think we've kind of jumped it, but we haven't really defined what the beta male is. In my estimation, the beta male is someone who doesn't take responsibility for their actions. A male or someone who takes responsibility for themselves and the choices that they make, stands upright with their shoulders back and says, yeah, I am responsible for myself. I think that's an alpha male. It's when people deflect responsibility and choose to blame everyone else for the circumstances in their life, which you become a beta male. And in every single situation we've seen, there is inherent in what these guys are saying an assumption of it's not my responsibility. Would that be a fair characterization?
Sure, I think that's a start.
That's a start. There are obviously
that's a start.
Nuances, but I think that's the kind of the basis.
I like it. Now, shall we finish up?
Andos has got to
We
justify
started off the segment with jumping to conclusions. We had a questioning if Blu-ray was a thing or was ever a thing. What do we have from Alex? Do you remember?
No.
We don't remember from Alex, but we do remember that Andy got nominated.
Oh, I said the RBA needs
You
to
said
go.
the RBA needs to go. Andos.
The Kardashian curse could be scientifically
Well,
proven.
it's good. It's related to what we talked about today. Tristan Thompson. Now, for Kardashian
Why don't you
curse.
let him finish? Yeah.
It's a good idea though. I'll tell everybody what the Kardashian curse is. I think that's where you were headed. Am I right?
Before I was cut off.
Before you were cut off.
Let him finish.
The Kardashian curse is a curse that happens to sports stars, celebrities, whoever gets involved romantically with a Kardashian, where they end up being just hot trash as a result of it.
Well, just much worse off at whatever they were good at or famous for before they got in the relationship.
Yeah. So we see Lamar Odom. That's probably the most prolific example of that.
Very sad case of Lamar Odom. Was a fringe all-star.
And
He could legit ball. That guy could actually ball.
And then
Kobe Bryant teammate.
our favourite K-Hump, Chris Humphries, fell victim to it.
Well, he got married to Kim Kardashian. Lamar Odom was married to Khloe.
I believe the hump was the 40-day marriage or 60-day marriage.
Something
I think it was
ridiculous.
71 maybe.
But yeah, it
Just
wasn't
around there.
wasn't impressive. It wasn't an impressive marriage. But I think that if you have a look at the effect that the clout that comes with coming from a Kardashian and the effect of the fandom as a result of it, I think the effect that has on the brain results in less productivity in the things that you're supposed to be productive at. I think probably the endorphins released and the just emotions you experience as a result of the fandom that comes with it, the constant pressure upon you, and the eyes watching you as a result of you becoming a Kardashian. Of you becoming a Kardashian, essentially, is that detrimental, and that I think you could probably prove with the effects it has on the brain that the Kardashian curse is real.
Okay, now can we have some more examples besides Lamar Odom and Chris Humphries?
Well, Tristan Thompson, for one, becomes
Tristan
hot
Thompson,
crap,
obviously.
hot trash.
Now,
I think the one I'd say that is almost an exemption, I'd say, is Kanye. even though
Kanye
Kanye...
has gotten hot. His album was hot.
He does. He
What
does.
about-
Also,
seem to
I would
have-
say
Scott Disick, Lord Disick, shout out
Disick.
there, what a boss.
Disick is a bit of a boss. Now, Ben Simmons, this is pretty funny, plays for the Philadelphia basketball team called the Philadelphia 76ers. And because the 76ers fans are so scared that Ben is going to start playing like trash, they signed petitions that got, I think, quite a few thousand signatures to prevent Kendall Jenner, who's a member of the Kardashian family, to stop coming to the games. They tried to start a petition so that she just wouldn't be allowed in the building while he plays.
Obviously, there's the question of whether the Kendall classifies as a legitimate Kardashian.
Yeah, the Kylie and Kendall definitely do. Chris does especially. Ben Simmons confirmed cuckold. He's an absolute cuck.
Here we go. Best Australian basketball is now a cuck.
He is.
6'8".
Kendall's cheated on him at least 2 times.
I've heard
serious?
Ben's been making
Yeah.
the rounds as well, though. I think they
No,
both have.
but-
But we don't know if they're actually boyfriend and girlfriend. They might just be dating.
Well,
seeing
but when
each
they
other.
were dating, Kendall was
I don't know if they're
caught
boyfriend and girlfriend.
making out with Bella and Gigi Hadid's brother
So-
Anwar.
And
Anwar, sinking buckets.
plus the foul and one.
He's completely... He Brad Stevens Ben Simmons, and then he completely shut him down, made him absolutely useless.
Did Brad Stevens do the Celtics do that?
In the playoff series, they made him absolutely... What they did was they put Al Horford on him, but camped him in the paint, so that Ben Simmons had no driving lanes, and since he can't shoot it, was completely...
Yeah, okay, so Kardashian curse.
I think it's real. I think it is real.
It's real.
I would say Scott Disick and Ye are obviously the two guys who are the exemptions, but obviously the tragic case of LeBar Roden was a pretty big...
But I think
Yeah.
I think as
It's
well,
a bit of a train wreck.
Scott,
Pretty tough to ignore.
Scotty Disick and Ye were also so established in their own fields.
What was Scott before he married?
Just a big baller. Big
I think
baller.
Kardashian's made him
I
way
think
more
so.
popular.
What was he
But
doing
he still would have had
beforehand?
it.
But you said he's way more established and you don't know what he's doing.
Yeah, but he's just
You don't know
famous
if
for
he
being
did.
rich. I don't know what he's
Yeah, but was he
actually...
that rich before he married Courtney?
I don't know.
I don't think they ever got
Are
married.
you telling me that Scott Disick wasn't uber loaded before he got with the
I'm
Courtney?
saying you
Is that
didn't
what
have
you're
the
trying to
news, saying about cloud.
Well, but I'm saying that regardless, you wouldn't know because you haven't done the research.
tell me?
on
Well, I
Scott.
wouldn't know because I would have been about 7.
So why would you come out and make these wild claims then?
Because Scotty
But he was
Disick
well
is the
established.
Lord. The Lord, the BDE that man possesses is off the charts.
Okay, we're going to wrap this up.
We
or are
are.
you going to keep making unsubstantiated claims?
It is called jumping to conclusions, in fairness, so I'm not going to go all in on Endos.
And also, it's completely impromptu.
Go get
Let's
your
not pretend like Dougal had a great one coming out the gate.
Paralympics.org.au.
What's
Stupid.
it? Blu-ray?
Blu-ray's not a thing. I go to JB Hi-Fi, and now I think that Blu-ray's not a thing.
Oh, one more last knock before we go. Super dissatisfied with JB service this week.
Oh,
We
jeez.
remember back to episode
I
1.
don't
We
think
love
we were gonna do
JB
that.
over EB Games. JB went to JB to Parramatta to buy this camera that we're now filming with. They were they had one there. They said, look mate, we only got one, except we're putting it on display, we can't sell it to you. So even though we're displaying it, like we've actually got it, we can't sell it to you. They said, look, go to Maryland, it's a 10-minute drive, they have 2 there. So go to Maryland, say g'day, heard you got the camera here mate, came from Parramatta. Yeah, sweet mate, I'll check if we got any. Yeah mate, we do have 2 cameras, except they're both on display, so we can't sell any of them to you. What are you doing? You've got 2 on display, you can't sell me any. So then I had to go back to Parramatta, went to a camera shop in Parramatta, who sorted me out.
Do you want to give a shout out to that camera store?
Well, I would, but I don't know the name.
Also,
What is it? Camera World or DigiWorld or something like that?
well, we're going to give a shout-out to the wrong company if we're just
Yeah.
going out like this. But I did this might be something
Who
for
puts 2 displays in the same camera?
stupid.
That's rogue.
But I heard
It's
YEB...
called Tom Sard's Camera House in Parramatta.
Shout out to
Sard's
Tommy
Camera
Sard.
House. Great service, absolutely great.
Do you
I
reckon
thought
you
it was
paid
10 out of
more?
10. No, exactly the same as what it was at JB.
Wow, well that's great. Big shout out, Tommy Sard. Little man giving it to the big guys.
Also,
The JB Hi-Fis.
I was enlightened as to why EB's prices are higher than JB's by my
Because they're
friend
crooks?
Bill. No, because what they
Because
do is
they're
they have
thugs.
more stock than JB. So when JB runs out, then they lower the prices. It's just a stupid.
No, they
war.
come out lower. They come out lower in JB on release date, and they stay lower.
But they run out of stock, so people are forced to go to EB Games.
Are you saying that they're running some type
That's
of deal?
that's from the mouth of someone who works at EB Games.
Okay, well...
So say that again. So the reason why JB has lower prices is because they got less stock.
No, they
Did
run
they-
out
did-
of stock, which means that EB capitalises when JB
But you go
runs
into
out of stock.
JB and they have all
always
the
has
games
all
you
the
want.
games.
Look, this isn't. I'm not saying that it's a
Is
smart
this from someone
business
at
model.
EB?
It is from someone from EB.
Yeah,
yes.
well, I'm sorry, but
I'm sorry,
the
I'm
EB,
not buying it.
Yeah, I'm not buying it.
I'm
They're-
not buying
they're
it.
crooks.
And you know what? That's a bad showing from EB. Now, it could be just Andy relaying the information poorly.
That's
But-
a strong possibility.
But if it is, in fact, what the EB position is, that makes me further entrenched in my position. I'm firmly in the JB Hi-Fi camp. EB can go suck eggs.
They can go take a nice long walk off a short pier, as we'd like to say.
I think that's where we're going to end the show. I think with that lovely imagery from Alexander Robert James.
Not as lovely as the image of you in that shirt, Andos.
Looking great, mate.
You're looking slick.
Alright,
Big shout out to Andos for backing up. He's got whooped today in basketball and he's also a little bit under the weather. So
super under the weather actually.
Came out,
Super.
performed, got a few buckets, put some points on the board.
did he score?
In the
Did he score any
podcast,
buckets?
in the podcast, you didn't play today, did you?
I did. I played about 25 minutes.
You
So.
did play.
See,
Did you get any points?
no, I didn't get any points. I was okay.
That's why.
I'm too insecure to talk about my basketball game. It still stinks. It really does sting. Getting whooped by 40 by a team that's not better than you by 40 points.
Okay, alright. We will console Andy and we will edit this podcast and we will see you sometime next week. See you later.
See you later. Thanks for coming. Thanks for having us.